We are going to be having a Mercury retrograde in Taurus this year in 2023, and I'm going to give you the dates for that. And this Mercury retrograde is happening in the sign that my Mercury is in. It's in Taurus, and it is going to be from April 7th through May 31st of this year. So, there's a couple of things to remember about Mercury retrograde. It isn't just that window of time when Mercury is moving retrograde, but it has to cover territory. So Mercury is actually going to be spending about 13 days covering territory, covering a span of degrees that it's going to be going back over during the retrograde for a second time. And then it's going to walk that path again for a third and final time, which makes for the post shadow. And so there's the pre shadow, there is the retrograde, and then there's the post shadow. Mercury enters shadow on April 7th. It then goes retrograde in Taurus at 15 degrees and 37 minutes of the sign. And then it stations direct at 5 degrees and 52 minutes of Taurus on May 14th. Now, Mercury is going to enter shadow at 5 degrees and 52 minutes. And then on May 31st, it's again going to hit that 15 degrees and 37 minutes, the same degree that it went retrograde at. So you can sort of put those pieces together with that. So what is this Mercury retrograde really about? And it's going to be really important to look to where you have around 5 degrees, so I would say 3 to 7 degrees of the fixed signs: Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. 3 to 7 degrees of the earth signs: Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, because that's going to be really important to consider with this Mercury retrograde, and what area of your life and what house will have the most impact and the most activation for this particular time period, because all these themes are going to resonate and be prevalent for you, specifically for you on an individual level that way. So you're going to also want to look to where I would say 13 to 17 degrees of the fixed signs, and then 13 to 7 degrees of the earth signs, because when Mercury hits that 15 degrees and 37 minutes of Taurus, which is 15 degrees in general, then that's going to have that's going to be impactful for you, and it's going to be significant for you. So you're going to want to be aware of that, and look to your own chart, find what planets or points are at and around that those degrees in the fixed signs or the earth signs: Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, and also what house in your chart is this Mercury retrograde activating for you. So during the pre-shadow of this retrograde, we can really start to see certain themes and certain lessons and certain experiences, situations play out for us, and then we're going to review that. We're going to be reviewing that over the course of the retrograde. the actual retrograde phase. So we're going to be going back over that, because Mercury retrograde is a time to, rethink, reevaluate. And it's the time where we can, process and digest, information. It's kind of like when you go to sleep and you have your entire day where you're going out and you're, doing things, you're living your life, and you're having all this information that you're taking with you, and then you go to sleep, and then you sleep, and then your brain, recharges its batteries, and then you wake up. Mercury sort of, kind of shuts down, kind of, goes to sleep for, 3 weeks, because that's how long the retrograde phase takes, and then wakes up and is back to its full power, and its qualities are, back on, and then it, starts to move forward. So, that may be more of a, negative view of it, but, Mercury is trying to teach us and have us look at certain things. And certain mercurial things, revolving, relationships, communication, information, um, businesses, contracts, all those kinds of things. And yes, you need to just live your life and do what's best for you. I'm really tired of hearing all this stuff about, don't do this during Mercury retrograde. Don't sign this contract. Don't do this. Don't do that. That's so disempowering. And it's dictatorial. And anything that is a protocol that you come across with, when you're online looking, watching an astrology video or reading an article, and you come across those protocols which tell you what and what not to do, during this time, then, you need to, take that with a grain of salt, and sort of, that's, a suggestion of sort of, know that that's part of what it is about, but it isn't to say that you can't initiate, or you can't begin this new relationship, or you can't sign a contract, or you can't agree to get married, or technology is going to go, haywire, or you're going to have misunderstandings, miscommunications, delays, and all those kinds of things, and you can't buy this product off of Amazon that's so expensive. And maybe, there's this one astrologer that I was watching who has the belief that the planets just reflect us, and they don't necessarily, do things to us, but they, reflect us in our state of being and our sort of stage of development and evolution of how we're growing as a spiritual being in this lifetime, and, how we are, as a, humanity, and as individuals, both on the individual level and the collective level. And maybe during this time we can be more sort of attuned to those misunderstandings, communications, when things go off, when, things don't work, when things don't go to plan, where, we can start to notice that. And really the key word is, metacognition. We're sort of thinking about how we're thinking and going about our life, and it may be harder to move forward because it's sort of pulling us, we're sort of, it's an invitation to go back over things, and maybe, you feel like, maybe I don't want to initiate. Maybe it's not best to initiate. Maybe, you're being more aware of when you want to initiate something, and you're not just jumping into it. And you can, weigh out, the pros and cons, and you can not just, impulsively, jump into something. and consider certain things, and come at it from a place of wisdom, but not just entirely, not just I'm not saying to not initiate, to not go out and live your life how you want to live it. It is a time where you may be more self-aware, more reflective, and you're sort of knowing yourself on a deeper, more psychological level. And maybe you're considering about when you're starting, just about to jump into something, or whatever. I will say, as a compromise to this, to to be aware and think things through a little bit more, and approach something with caution, and you know um, just sort of like, is it worth it? um, do I want this? Do I need this? um, and yeah, so not just not doing it entirely, but considering, like, is this right for me to do? Will this serve me? Do I need to do this? Do I really want to do this? So that's those are all important conversations, and important things to keep in mind, during this time. But definitely don't, use this, as an excuse to not go out and live your life, because, things will happen, and there may be obligations, there may be, so many things happening in your life. And I really don't think that we should paint a narrative of fear-based astrology that it's so negative, it's an inconvenience, and all those kinds of things, because it's so strong and so prevalent, and it's just been looked at and described in a way that it really shouldn't be. So don't use this as a reason just not to go out and live your life, because you need to do what you have to do. And so, yeah. So that's what I'm going to say on that. And so getting into the specific retrograde, it's happening in Taurus. And so this is a time where we can reevaluate what we value and what's really important to us. What is really, what do we really need, and what really matters in our lives? What are the resources that we need to feel, secure and happy and healthy and well, to be successful, to be efficient, to be at peace, to be grounded, to be spiritually connected? What do we really value? Moving down the list to the core values. Is it a hobby that we really value? Is it, relationship with somebody? What do we enjoy doing that brings us peace and stability, that that we really value? Is it gardening? Is it cooking? Is it reading novels? Is it writing uh, books and coming up with fictional stories? Um, what is it? For instance, one of the things I obviously really value is doing this, coming on every week, and doing these astrology videos. So maybe where you're going back over, and maybe I value something else. Maybe I thought that this was important, but actually, this isn't as important as I felt like it was before. So, really viewing something from a new lens. Mercury retrograde times are times where we can, review things and see something from a new lens. Like, we think that we're seeing something from this perspective, and we think that we're all good and we have it down, but then Mercury retrograde goes back over that, and then we start to, then we see it differently, and then we begin again in different ways, and go about our lives and make decisions and take action based off of that information that we are looking back upon, during that retrograde. I remember, from personal experience, I think that when Mercury, because it stations still before, it goes retrograde, it has to slow down and then it goes retrograde, which is super important, to remember, is that it stands still, and all those mercurial themes are more highlighted: thinking, communication, all those things. And it sort of feels like we've mastered things that we've gone as far as we can go with our habit patterns, um, and certain kind of intellectual stuff, in terms of how we're going about our lives, in terms of relationships, communication. But then the only way that we can go now, we've only come so far. We might as well go back, and then Mercury starts to review that and go back over that, and then we re-look at that, especially when Mercury has that same degree in minute as it covered in the pre-shadow, the setup phase of the Mercury retrograde. And then all those lessons that we've learned, we integrate them in the integration phase, which is from May 14th to May 31st. And so, we can also redefine, security. What brings us a sense of security, oneness, what makes us feel comfortable, because Taurus is ultimately about comfort, especially creature comforts. It's a sign of, the bull, and it's all about, what's, simple, what, really nourishes us on a, heart and soul kind of, body, level, especially dealing with, the physical body, so, because it corresponds over food, it corresponds over anything that you can engage in with your five senses: music, you taste, touch, hear, see, and smell. And so what brings us comfort, where we can really find things to do that bring us comfort, and we can really slow down and settle down. This is the time to settle down and establish stability. Another thing is Taurus likes that stability, likes that predictability, likes there to be some kind of routine, which is consistent. It doesn't really like a whole lot of, spontaneity and, new stuff and, chaos. That's, Gemini, where we get into, variety and, engaging the mind and, having an idea that we're spontaneously going after this and, reading this book, sort of the butterfly flitting from flower to flower and, having all these kind of relationships with people, one thing after the other thing, sort of flitting from one thing to the other. That's Gemini, which craves variety, But Taurus is the opposite. It rules the earth, and the earth is always going to be there. It's fixed. It's stable, and Taurus is really about the simple rhythms of the earth. And Taurus is fixed earth. It likes to hold on to things, that it finds pleasurable. It doesn't want to, let things go easily. So what are our possessions and resources that we most value, that are most meaningful for us, and how can we establish stability? What kind of routine can we set up, like any kind of practice that you want to set in place for your morning? What kind of spiritual practice? Maybe you want to wake up and meditate in the mornings. Maybe you want to go outside in nature and get really grounded in nature, and take walks and plant, cook, look at art, paint, play a musical instrument, whatever brings us that stability. And also, if we're working towards something, if we're trying to get something done, it's not a time to rush. It's a time to slow down and really enjoy the process and take those slow and steady steps to engage, enjoy the goal, and enjoy and savor and make the most of the present moment, especially the process of getting things done, and being willing to be committed and be focused and stay the course to achieve that goal, and take those steps, not rushing the process, but as the motto is, slow and steady wins the race. Thinking more practically about things, thinking more logically about things, where we can think, where we can slow down our thinking and think, really, what is, how we can make this, we have this goal, we have this desire, we have this idea, and how can we ground it down to earth and make it a reality. And so another little aspect of this is looking back over memories, past memories, like the old photo albums, old um, uh, videos and such things like that, because it is a way for nostalgia, and where we can you can look at archives and you can take a trip down to memory lane, and so that's why on my channel I'll be presenting archive videos of videos I recorded when I was younger, when I was growing up, before I started my YouTube channel. You can have the opportunity to see me and what I was like in the types of videos I filmed when I was younger. And I'm really thrilled to showcase and share those videos on this channel. And I do provide explanation into those videos so you can understand, what the videos are about, what's going on, what I do in the videos. So I hope that you do enjoy those videos. And you'll see those videos come out during this Mercury retrograde, and probably the future Mercury retrogrades. Um, um, because it is, it relates to that, especially simple memories, like remembering making something with somebody, that it was really delicious, or remembering just going to the garden and looking at flowers, remembering going to an art museum, or or an orchestra concert. What kind of simple, treasured, nostalgic memories that may involve people in your world, especially family, that you find valuable, that would be a good time to look at that, And you may find yourself feeling a calling to look back at those experiences and those memories. And it's a wonderful time to do that. Reviewing those. And so, yeah. So, do you feel like you have the things that you need? Do you feel secure? That's one question that we can ask. What do you need? What do you want on an individual level? Um, for yourself. What kind of, foundations for your life, for, goal, um, that you want to set at this time. What foundations, what earthly foundations, because Taurus comes in after Aries, wants to lay down the foundations. Let's get down to earth now. Um, you know, what kind of foundations do you want to lay out for yourself in your life? And are you doing things for yourself that are, worth your time, that make you feel happy, at peace, pleasurable, that bring you into high, frequency, high vibrations of love, appreciation, gratitude? Also is a good time to review what you are grateful for, and what you really appreciate in your life. So, are you doing things that make you, that bring you a sense of pleasure also? So, that's what it comes down to. So there's, stuff going on, and, there's certain aspects, that Mercury will be making. But I just want to stop, because that was, enough information for you. I hope that you find this a really, fulfilling and, really, educational and insightful, worthwhile retrograde season. And I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in another video. Bye for now, everybody.